Hello, my name is Father Edna Donnelly from the Father Edna Donnelly Good News Fund. And I'm looking for some guests on my show today. So if you'd like to be my guest, if you have a question, comment towards something I say, or a question you have for me, just call me at 860-321-7405. 860-321-7405. Okay? Well, I think we have somebody on the line now, so we'll take it right now. You're on the air with Father Ed.
Yes. Father, you've had, one of your main ministries is kind of like vocations and the coming future vocations. Life has changed from when you entered. Like when you started the priesthood, studying for the priesthood, you went in high school. Do you see like young people today coming in? If you were the vocation director, where would you start? Like what age group would you look for? Who would you do? What type of person, or and also to religious life?
Well, I wouldn't have them go to high school because when I finished my preparation for the seminary, when I was ordained in 1959, I was 26 years old, but emotionally I was about a 15-year-old. I spent most of my time with teenagers, and I become well known because of my working with teenagers. But I was really emotionally on their level. So I wouldn't have kids go to the seminary and high school. I'd want them to have a normal social life in high school. I would even say, I don't think I'd want kids to go to college. I want them to go to college, but I would wait until after college, because this way they got everything through their system. They've had relationships with women. They've had a time to develop their spiritual life. They've had a time to develop a prayer life. A time to discover who they are. One of the problems in marriage is people get married early and then they don't have a chance to discover who they are. And then they go through that young adult stage and all of a sudden they want to be free when they're married. So with the priesthood too, I think if you go too early, I mean, there are exceptions. We've had saints who've gone in at 16, but we're not talking about the exceptions. We're talking about the normal person. So I would say go to college. You need to have to get a college education before you can go into theology. So you just can't go from high school to theology. You have to have 4 years of college. So I would say during your college years, if you start praying about what you want, your sophomore year of college, that's when you start taking your major, whatever that's going to be. So about that second year of college, when you're starting to thinking about what major do I want, if you've had a prayer life and a social life and a normal life, and then you start thinking, and you have a prayer life during that time, I start asking very early, Lord, what do you want me to be when I grow up? And now that I'm grown up, Jesus says, when are you going to grow up? But seriously, I think we need to go on that natural level, begin college, and then see if you are called. I remember I was going to leave the seminary in my second year of college, and my confessor says, well, why don't you wait until you finish 4 years of college? And that made sense to me. And then I found after the second year of college, I started thinking about it a lot more seriously. So the answer to your question is, don't go to a Catholic high school. We've got a lot of Catholic high schools in Connecticut that you can go to. You can go there, and you can also go to college, whatever, UConn or a Catholic college, Fairfield University. I'm talking about Connecticut, but it depends on what you can afford. But I think the better thing is to go to a community college for those first 2 years, because you really don't know what you want to do. And after those 2 years of community college, where it isn't too expensive, then you can turn around and start thinking about what you want for the rest of your career. So I'd say go to community college. At that time, you'll start thinking about what's going to be my major. And if you had a prayer life and you're close to Christ during that time, I think you could end up discovering that you may have a vocation. You don't go to seminary to be a priest. You go to seminary to find out if you're called to be a priest. Okay?
Okay. Now, also then, too, what do you see as the parishes are different today? In other words, there used to be, parish in almost every corner, in every city, and then they would have a Catholic school. So when you knew what your ministry would be, it might be service, to that particular parish, and then to the hospital or whatever. But things are changing. I mean, do you come in with a specialty? If you're good in some area, should you develop that? If it's psychology or is it accounting? I mean, because if you're put in charge of a parish in that, you're kind of like you have to have those skills if you're the pastor. But I mean, do you see the coming?
Well, the only skill I ever had was a big mouth, But my thing is, a priest is not there for all to do all things. He's there to find people to do all things. So I think, I would never want to be responsible for money. I would have an accountant for it. I wouldn't be responsible for liturgy. I'd have a liturgist. I wouldn't want to be responsible for music. I'd have a musician. So my point is, too bad that so much responsibility was put on priests when they really weren't qualified. I didn't take any courses on finances in the seminary, so I wasn't really qualified. But I got an accountant who makes sure I was on a straight and narrow path. So the point is that the priest today, his main job is to be of service to people, spiritually, emotionally, and etc. But I was in the hospital for 4 days last week, and my job wasn't to be diagnose if they had high blood pressure or if they had diabetes. My job was to help them spiritually. So if you try to take on all different responsibilities, then you're good in none of them. So my answer is that the lay people should be involved a lot more in the running of the parish than a priest is, because the priest really isn't qualified. And lots of times these young fellas coming out and they get a parish early and they mess up terribly, not on the spiritual service, but on the administration of the parish. They really mess up. I'll give you an example. I was giving a mass for Vietnamese kids one day, and I talked to the kids after, and then I got paid for $400 by the pastor. And I said, Father, I'm good, but I'm not that good. And so what happened, the guy needs to be monitored. And that's the problem with a lot of young fellas, because we're in such need of priests. Young fellas are becoming pastors and administrators when they're not ready to be an administrator, and they're just learning to be a pastor. So my point to you is, the priest shouldn't have all different gifts. A priest should have one gift to reach out to find lay people who could use their gifts for the running of the parish. Okay?
Helpful. Yes, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was a good question. A question, when should a young man go to the seminary? And the second question, what about our parishes today? Well, our parishes are changing. We don't have priests. We don't have young people. Most people are my age, and I'm 86. So you look at the parishes today, they look like convalescent homes, because most people in there are over 65. So it really has changed. So there has to be a readjustment. And like Pope Benedict XVI said, the church in America, especially in New England, is getting smaller and smaller. There are less churches open, more being closed. By the way, if you just tuned in, my name is Father Edna Donnelly, and my telephone number is 860-321-7405. 860-321-7405. So my question to you is, what is your question? And that was the first caller talked about vocations and leadership in parish life today. And it is changing. In the old days, the pastor would have 3 curates who would help him, have 3 curates, and he'd be the boss. But now we have a pastor not with three curates, but with 3 parishes. And these pastors are much older. So we are in a crisis situation in New England, not all over. You go down to Florida and you see the masses are packed with people, not just elderly, but young people and children. But New England, for some reason, I have some theories, but for some reason, New England has really lost their Christianity. It's really turned into the god of materialism. Okay, my telephone number is 860-321-7405. You're on the air with Father Ed.
Hi, Father. It's Elaine. How are you?
Now that you called, I'm very happy. I was depressed until that time.
Okay, well, I'm glad I could make you happy. Hey, I noticed that on Route 9 there's a few more billboards. When did those go up?
Just recently. I was coming up from, where was I coming from? I was coming up from Niantic Sunday night, and I was coming up Route 9. And I was pleasantly surprised. I've had one billboard up there that says, Jesus, forgive me. It's been there for about at least 3 years. But I was pleasantly surprised. I saw a digital, those every 6 seconds. It says, Jesus, I adore you. And then I went on a little further. I said within a mile, I saw the third one, Jesus, I love you, Jesus. So I was pleasantly surprised. Well, out front is one of the billboard companies, and they move my billboards around. And like the one I saw on Route 9, I saw on 84 last week. So what they do is they change it around. But I've never seen 3 billboards within a mile and a half of each other, or 2 miles most of all.
Yeah, I haven't either, and I'm up and down Route 9 quite a bit. And I just noticed the other day, all of a sudden there's, 3 of them kind of close together. That's great.
That's because they're 2 different billboards. You have out front one, and you have Lamar is the other. So they're not talking to each other. So they put up when they want to. And a lot of my billboards are pulled up when there's an empty space.
Oh, okay.
So there obviously was an empty, the contract with the other commercial went out. And so they put me in and filled me up until they get another a customer. But I was really pleased. I don't know how many people go on 9, but where I have my billboards, coming off of 72, going towards Newington, you're getting one group, and then you're coming up Route 9 from the Berlin area, you got another group. So there's got to be thousands of cars that go by there. And one thing I've got billboards all over the place. I've figured, like in one billboard, I had it for 6 months, and it had 55,000 cars. And that, you add that up in 6 months, that's over 1.2 million cars. They're not all new cars because people are coming from work every day. But if just 20% read them, that's 250,000 cars that are praying when I have there. But overall, there are about 2 million cars that go by my billboard on a monthly basis, all over like on Route 8. I just saw my billboard, Jesus, I adore you.
Oh, really?
And I thought, and then coming up Route 84, I saw a digital that said, Jesus, Jesus, I love you. Coming east on 84, I saw a billboard, Jesus, I adore you. So I know there's a lot of people who are visiting, and every time they see it, they pray. And the other thing, I get a lot of calls from there, calls for help. My son's in jail. Father, I've got cancer, pray for me. Or my wife left me, or I committed adultery, I need to go to confession. I get all kind of calls. It's like a parish without boundaries. But the ones I don't know, I'll tell you a story. I was up in, where was I? In Bethlehem. I sang Mass for Regina Laudis, and I was having breakfast, and a man came over to me, and because he saw that billboard somewhere along the line, he said, Father, 40 years ago, when I was 15 years old, you came to my family with my mother and father having trouble, and you helped them. and I never forgot it. Now that's 40 years ago.
Wow.
The guy was 55. He was 15 when I was there. Now he remembered it. So what the billboards do, they do bring some memories. I hope most of them are good memories, not the bad memories. But it's very effective. The problem that costs money, between the last 2 years, not counting this year, last year was $75,000, and the year before that was $56,000 for the billboards. So you're talking about $130,000 for 2 years. Now this year, where am I? 6 months. I'm probably at least $20,000 that I've spent. Now where did I get the money? Well, I tried to hold up the Webster Bank, but it was too heavy, so I couldn't do it. So what I do, I just beg. I just beg and ask people to help. And so whenever I'll go into a restaurant and I'll give out my little crosses, and people will say, "Father, I really, really enjoy your billboards." And 3 times I said, "Do you really, really enjoy my billboards?" "Oh, yes, Father." So I give them my business card, and I say, "Oh, okay, help me pay for them." So I got some checks this morning from people I meet in the restaurants. I don't go to order food in the restaurants. I go out and go there to give out crosses and give out my business card. So, but I do buy some water once in a while. So
The digital ones, are they the same? They're a little difficult to read because it changes.
oh yeah, it doesn't. You gotta be caught right there.
Yeah.
Because if you're far away, by the time you get there, these are every 6 seconds they change. They have 10 digital billboards, commercials in 1 minute, so they're constantly changing. So you're going to miss a lot, but some people see it. But the billboards are much better. So, by the way, I think I know who you are. You live in Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah, I do, right.
But I want to thank you for supporting the Father Nadali Good News Fund.
My pleasure.
And God bless you for calling. Thanks for the call.
Father, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You're on the air with Father Ed.
Hi, Father Ed. This is Blythe Kaufman.
Hi, Blythe. Tell me a little about the Children's Rosary that I hear so much about, and your travel to Africa, and why did you go there?
Wonderful. Well, thank you for the invitation to speak about the Children's Rosary. For those who aren't familiar with this is a prayer group movement for children where the children meet in parishes, schools, and orphanages to pray the Rosary as a prayer group. The charism has nothing to do with education. We know that children are taught the Rosary, usually in catechism or if they're going to Catholic school, but our focus is really very narrow, and it's purely to support the prayer lives of the children, encouraging them to grow in holiness through praying the Rosary in these prayer groups. So that's basically the charism of the Children's Rosary, is to promote children to grow in holiness.
Oh, good. Now, when did you start this?
So this started on April 10th, 2011 in West Hartford, Connecticut.
Oh boy, what parish did you start in?
It was St. Thomas the Apostle.
Okay. Now tell me how it's grown, and where do you go out? Where do you reach out to children, not just in Connecticut? You must go further than that.
Exactly. So it did start just here in Connecticut, and then really through word of mouth, people began to hear about this, and they wanted this in their parish, their school. Grandparents wanted their grandchildren part of it, parents as well. And so it began to start first in the parishes, and then we saw it spread into the schools. This is not a home-based program, so this is really meeting at the ideally in a school, for instance, you would have the children meeting each week in their classrooms, the respective classrooms, to pray the Rosary as a prayer group. In this way, you really can capture so many children and introduce them to this and let those roots to go very deep. But yes, it's spread. Now it's in approximately 30 countries, and we just spent the month of June visiting East Africa, so Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda.
And what was your experience there?
So it was an extremely powerful experience, one that increased my faith, and we were traveling not in a group. It was primarily my family, and so we put a lot of this in prayer. First of all, I have a disability, so I normally don't travel well, and so the idea of traveling to somewhere like Africa was about as far away from my thought process. People had invited us to come and visit the groups and this type of thing, but I always said, I leave this in God's hands. If He wants us to go, He'll show us the way. And then in prayer, over the last 6 months or even more, I really felt called, my heart opening to go to Africa. And so that took quite a while to fully develop and share with my husband, and for his heart to open to that. And we ultimately went as a family, and we traveled across pretty big territories to visit these groups and to start sow seeds to start new groups. And some of the testimonies that we heard from pastors, children, were extremely powerful. For instance, one priest was sharing, that he had many broken families in his parish, and that through the children, through their prayers, they began to bring their parents back to church. And he taught them how to make an intention in the group, meaning like how to bring what was worrying them to our Lord in the prayer groups. And through that, so many things started to happen. As I mentioned, families that had been separated, parents started to wanting to get back together and vow to become one again. He said there was some division in the outposts, and where people didn't even want to look each other in the face, and the children started praying for their church leaders, and all of a sudden the people started wanting to work together. He said there was areas where there wasn't a lot of peace, and that the peace came back. And he said when you lose peace, people just want to leave the church. But when you have peace, it's actually a magnet drawing people back into the church again. And he had to start 3 outstations because there were just so many people. And I think he said he started in about 21 of his 24 outstations. So it was, he said it was like a bushfire and how it spread. And then in Uganda, we were hearing similar things from the children, the parish priests, the parents, about the transformations that were happening, especially in the children, which was really encouraging. Their faith was increasing. One mom spoke about how her children had, through being part of the Children's Rosary, had begun singing little simple songs that they sing in the Children's Rosary, that they were praying while they were doing their work. She said how they would greet people on the road as they would walk. And then when her son developed a skin, like scabies or something she called it, in his scalp, she said, take your rosary, pray to your God, because her faith had been increased through her own children. So she said, she said he prayed in the morning, he prayed at night, he prayed, and he had a healing. And so through that, we could see how that the children, because they're in this group, continue to support each other through these witness stories, that they just kept getting stronger and stronger in their faith. So, where one child might have fallen away if they had been alone, but because they were in this prayer group, the faith got stronger and stronger. So, and I'm just thinking of the Gospels that we had read like a week ago, when it says, take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well, when the woman with the hemorrhage. So it's that deep faith that these kids have developed in these prayer groups, that the moms say they get what they ask for, which is beautiful. Like the children pray and they see results. So it's very, very powerful.
A question. You talked about a principal and bullying in one of the high schools here in Connecticut, and I'm in the United States. Maryland is somewhere.
Oh, right, yes. We went down in November to visit one of the schools that has the Children's Rosary meeting weekly, and he's in Birmingham, Alabama, and we spoke to the children there, one of the teachers, and he was saying how he felt like Our Lady had started to take over and guide his school, and also the same thing about peace coming over his school, and he felt it was one of the most effective anti-bullying efforts that you could do in a school.
And Now, you told me you just sent over a tanker of rosaries or a gallon, or how many rosaries did you send over, went with you or ahead of you?
We carried over 3,000 rosaries with us, but those went very quickly. We also sent 2 barrels with together over 13,000 rosaries, and they were just opened on Saturday. And you would think that that would be plenty, but what we found is that these dioceses were so open and excited to spreading this. And one particular priest in Masaka Diocese in Uganda, he oversees 43 schools. And so if you figure some of those schools have 1,000 children, some smaller, but if you figure each one has 500 children in it, you're talking about over 21,000 rosaries just for his parish schools. So you can see how, in a way, this is just whetting the appetite of these of these different groups, because it's spreading so quickly, and it's changing the lives. One of the girls, I remember when we were visiting one of the schools, she said, "Rosaries help us to know God." And when I heard her say that, I immediately got my notebook. I quickly, just scratched that down, because it actually, it's that important to them. I mean, one rosary changes a person's life. And so when that started to really sink into me, that the trajectory of this child's life is now going to be changed because we've put a rosary in their hand and they're actually using it, it really started to make me think about prioritizing things in my life and making sure that we get as many rosaries as we can into these hands of these children, because not only does it affect their little parish, it has the potential to affect the world and the trajectory of the world. If you start having this many children praying, and this is not an isolated place, but by going there and Our Lady, allowing us to see this and the potential, once you have that many children praying, this creates so much grace that you can move into areas that are highly secularized, which are much more difficult to break into. So it's hopeful for the whole Church Universal, our world, and right here in Connecticut.
Tell me, compare the acceptance on the African scale and the American scale.
Well, I think that the United States has been extremely open to the Children's Rosary, and I think that really the world, in the sense that you see how quickly this has only been 8 years in existence, and yet you see it spreading to 6 continents. So there's a thirst within souls, whether it be in Africa or here, to bring your children's holiness, to bring our children to Our Lady, to our Blessed Mother, to lead them to Jesus. So we're having people respond throughout the world, but there's definitely an openness, especially in certain remote areas and rural areas that don't have a lot of modernism, to see them meeting daily. And that is extremely powerful. So if you can have a Children's Rosary group meet daily, that is wonderful. But we also saw a lot of changes in schools where they were meeting weekly. And even for 3 months duration, we saw at several of them, we would would say the children had been changed in just a 3-month duration. So that's incredibly encouraging. I mean, St. Therese said about children, they're like soft as wax, where you can either imprint virtue and vice or vice on them very easily. And so these kids are soft, and you can mold them in the direction of virtue or vice very easily.
Tell me, if anybody would want some information about Children's Rosary, that it may be listening to this program right now, where would they get information?
So we have a website, childrensrosary.org, and that actually has quite a bit of information, explains how to start a group. It has a lot of our materials if you want to do that. We also have a phone number as well, 860-785-3340. So you can always call us if you would like to email us at info@childrensrosary.org. That's also another way to email us, and we have a mailing address also listed on the website as well. So there's ways to write if you want to call, and if anyone is feeling moved to help us in sponsoring a box, because to send a box of approximately 450 rosaries, which may target one whole school, that would approximately cost us about $100. And so to think $100 could change not only one child's life, but a whole school. It's really, and we have people, donating rosaries. We always are in need of people who make rosaries to send them to us. So if you want to send us, we prefer handmade rosaries. That is a wonderful way to support us as well. But the postage is, I think, the biggest stumbling block for us. If we often have the donated rosaries, but we really don't have the money to send them.
Yeah, tell me, you got a globe on the internet. What's all that about?
So we have something on our website called a View from Heaven map, and so it's the world in a night sky as we imagine that our Lord and our Lady see it. So when they look down, we imagine they don't see the lights of homes and cars. They see the lights of prayer. And so when groups register, we invite them to put in when they are meeting. And so when they are actually holding their meetings for, say, 30 minutes, a blue twinkling light flashes on the night sky in the area of the world where they're meeting. And there's this little invitation that says, join the children in prayer. And so you can go on there and just click a button. You don't have to enter any information. Just click that button. And for 30 minutes, a gold twinkling light twinkles in the night sky so that the children or other people there can feel connected. And we ask the groups to pray for those unifying prayers with them. So if you're, say, a person living at home and you think, nobody ever prays about me, who even knows about me to pray for me? If you go on and join in prayer, if there's groups meeting at the same time, you can be included in their prayers. And that's at childrensrosary.org.
How do I look? What's the email address or?
Well, the childrensrosary.org is the website, and you can email us at info, so INFO, at childrensrosary.org. So that would come, I would be seeing that as the founder. I would see that. So I can also give you my personal email, which is blythe.kaufman@gmail.com, and that's BLYTHE.KAUFMAN@gmail.com. So there's a few ways you can reach out to us, but we'll find you even if you tried any of those methods.
But if I want to see that globe, it's childrensrosaries.org.
Exactly. Yep, it's Children's Rosary. That's where you would be able to see the map and add your light to the View from Heaven map, and anybody else around the world would be able to see it. And we're still trying to get the word out about that View from Heaven so that people know about it and realize that they can use that. And they can also submit intentions on our website too. So there's a number of different things you can do on the website. And so we really hope, this is, we try to do a lot with very little, and so anything that people can do to help, you become part of this. And we ask the children in their groups to pray for those who help the Children's Rosary. So you immediately become part of this tapestry of prayer that's extending across the globe, and it's very powerful.
You really don't know how many children in the world are saying the rosary, do you? Although you know how many rosaries you've sent out over the years.
Well, it's hard to exactly quantify, but as I was traveling around East Africa, when I was seeing the number of schools coming online, and when we would go, one of the things at Mass this week, as I was at Mass, and I was thinking about our Lord and how He went through His ministry, and there were all adults around Him, and sometimes children, which of course He called to Himself. This time, when we were going, and by the way, I don't compare myself in any way to our Lord, but I was just a witness. And what I was witnessing as I traveled was that the children were lining the roads. The children were they were pressing against me, throngs of children. And why were they there? They were answering a call. They were answering a call to prayer. And so I really saw sort of something that Our Lady was doing was that she is amassing a large number of children, and she's inviting them to prayer, and they're responding. And so it's hard to know exactly how many of these children there are, but it's a great number. It's a great number. So it's very encouraging to see. And we're going to be we also have a website called childrensrosary.blogspot.com, and you can see we've started to highlight some of the days and what happened. Today, for instance, I just put a number of comments from one of the pastors, all the things he was seeing as a result of the Children's Rosary. So you can see his own words of how he recounts what this did in his parish. So people can just, see what was happening, and it's once you start to taste this and see it, it's exciting. It's very, very exciting.
Good. By the way, did Father Boris ever get a hold of you?
The father from Ghana?
Yeah.
Yes, we had a wonderful, thank you, Father Ed, for directing me to talk to him. He's a priest from Ghana who's visiting here. And once we spoke, he's really excited about bringing the Children's Rosary to Ghana. And he's going to be coming by to pick up some welcome letters. And I could see immediately Our Lady's hand because he has a very strong devotion to our Blessed Mother. And he's really looking, he's very open to the Rosary. He's prayed it since he actually attributes his vocation to Our Lady and the Rosary. So I could see some good things happening with that too. Very good.
Great. Well, thank you. If anybody wants any information, they just have to call me, and I'll give them your telephone number and some of the information you just gave me. So thank you very much, Doctor, for sharing that beautiful story. The evolution, the church will be saved, I'm convinced, by children. And the Rosary, there's no question in my mind. So thanks a lot for calling in.
Thank you so much. Have a blessed evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was Dr. Kaufman. She is a doctor at the University of Connecticut. And back in 11 years ago, or 8 years ago, she started the Children's Rosary. I remember when she came to my parish at Sacred Heart, East Berlin, she started with little Katie. Katie was 7 years old, and she had two little brothers, and they started the Rosary. So nobody was coming, but Katie is now 14 or so, and she's still leading rosaries. So I'm convinced that the message that Doctor gave me, that children really are the answer. Children are the answer to many of our family problems. Like she said, where families were broken up through the Rosary by children, it was a unifying force. The Rosary was bringing people back together. So, by the way, if you just tune in, my name is Father Ed Nadolny from the Father Nadolny Good News Fund. And the topic is your topic. We've had calls about vocations. We had calls about billboards. We had calls about children's rosaries. So if you have a call and you have a question, give me a call at 860-321-7405. 321-7405. And I need a drink right now, not a martini. Oh, I got to tell you a story. One day while I was having this show, I was sitting back like my voice was going there. I said, I need a martini. No, I never drink except water, milk. I was brought up on milk. I still drink milk before I go to bed. And I made that comment. The next time I was on the show was last week, a week before last, 2 weeks ago. John Walsh comes from Burlington, and he comes to the Nutmeg here in Farmington. And after the show, he introduces himself to me and tells me, my name is John Walsh, and I brought you a martini. It must have been enough for 10 guys. And it broke my heart. I start laughing. I says, John, I don't drink. I took a vow at 15 when I made my confirmation that I wasn't going to drink. And I've been sober for 86 years and very happy being sober. So I was so touched that this man came all the way from Burlington. It's one of the cities that Nutmeg is in. And he came and he wanted to share a martini with me. And I don't even know what a martini is. I don't know if it's vodka or I don't know what's in it. But it's the thought that counts. But I felt so badly. But we had a nice chat after. I learned that he's a robot. He fixed robots. And that's a thriving business. But it's also a scaring business. Because every robot that's working, that's one human being that loses his job. Just looking at the tolls that are going up. Like I've been going to Long Island for 60 years to see my brother and family. And I'd go through the Throgs Neck Bridge. I remember paying 25 cents. Now it's over $8. But I would see maybe 15 or 20 toll takers, people there. Now they're all gone. And you have the automatic tolls, the robot tolls, I call them. And I see that in industry too. So as we become more sophisticated scientifically, we're losing our humanity. So if you have a question for me, call me at 860-321-7405. 860-321-7405. There's a letter here I got from, not I, but it was sent out from the Connecticut Catholic Public Affairs Conference. It's kind of a lobbying part of the diocese, and we have representatives at the Capitol. This says came from Bishop Blair, Bishop Gaggiano from Bridgeport, Blair from Hartford, Bishop Betancourt from Hartford, Bishop Cody from Norwich Diocese, and Most Reverend Paul Chemka from the Eparch of Stamford, the Ukrainian diocese. Well, this is a letter that was sent out to everybody. My dear brothers and sisters in Christ, these past months have been marked by escalating tensions at our southern border. Most recently, we were confronted with the tragic images of the drowning deaths of Oscar Martinez and his 23-month-old daughter, Angie Valeria, who were fleeing the dangers of El Salvador for the safety of the United States. Other immigrants have crossed the border with their lives, but have been captured and are now detained in overcrowded conditions as a result of political gridlock in our nation's capital. We, the Catholic bishops of Connecticut, urge our government to act for a complete overhaul of existing immigration policies. I'll continue this as we just had a call. Our telephone call is 860-321-7405, 860-321-7405. Please call in with a question or a comment. You're on the air with Father Ed.
Hey, Father. Hi, Father. How are you?
I got a cold. I'm dying, but I'm doing well.
Well, thanks be to God.
So tell me, what question you have for me before I start asking you questions?
Yes.
Well, the first question has to do...
I can't think of anything right now. Do you have any questions for us?
Oh, yeah, I always got a question for us.
Okay,
For you.
all right.
One, you know, with the escalation of prices, I'll give you an example. I have a infection in my ear, so and I can't hear. So if you commit mortal sin, go on that side, I'll never hear it. So I went to the pharmacy, and I gave a subscription, and one subscription covered my insurance covered one subscription, but the other one didn't.
Okay.
And the other one was for $232.
Yeah.
So it came out of my pocket.
Yeah.
And why is it that they are so expensive? Is it because there are no generic pills like it, or why would it be so expensive?
Actually, that is right.
Right. There probably was no generic available for that combination or for that specific entity of medication. I had a fellow call me today, and he had a similar situation. And his medication could be broken up into two separate ingredients that he would have to pay for himself off insurance. But at least it was a lot less expensive than the combination. So sometimes the companies are making combinations of medications that are available as separate entities, but they're trying to make it more convenient so you only have to take one product at a time. But unfortunately, the price gets jacked up with that kind of situation, for either it's not available as a generic or the combination isn't available separately.
You know, the other interesting thing, too, is not only do they do that, but if you have a medication that you have to take 3 times a day and they come up with a medication you only have to take once a day, the price goes way up for that, too. So it's, again, it's that convenience that is causing that increase in price.
Yeah.
But is it costing the company that much more money to make it that way?
Probably not, but they're probably trying to extend their patent. So they're changing the dosing of it or changing the frequency, or they're trying to just extend what they might have as 2 separate ingredients.
So they want to make more money.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, now we come to our other doctor, Donna. We have 2 doctors calling in, by the way, and on nutrition and food.
Yes.
You gave me a combination of WWW. Water, walk, and watch what you're eating. And what information would you give people who have a problem with obesity? I had a person come to me just recently, and she told me that she just can't stop eating, and it's really affecting her health.
Yeah.
But, you know, some people are addicted to drugs, alcohol, or gambling. She says, I'm addicted to food. So what do you do with a person like that?
Well, I think with a person like that, it's really a behavioral thing that we have to change in that person. And the interesting thing is once you really do have to coach these people because they really need to be constantly told, you know, how to do this, how to do that. But once they start eating healthy food, it's a very interesting thing because then the body actually starts saying, I don't want that bad food anymore, and they don't feel good when they start eating that bad food again. So what we try to do is we try to encourage them, introduce good foods, one type of food once a week, just into their diet so that they can start incorporating. We don't ask people to take anything away yet because that is kind of their security blanket. So when you take something like that away, they feel like the floor has, you know, dropped out from underneath them. So what we try to do is we encourage them to eat more good foods. Don't take away the bad food yet, but we notice that as we start to do that, the body starts saying, I don't like that bad food anymore. And they do get some bad reactions, or they just don't feel good the next morning, almost like they have a hangover when they do get that bad food introduced to them again. So I think with people like that, we have to start introducing good food to them. And there's also foods out there that actually will suppress their appetite. An apple is a wonderful fruit out there that it contains pectin, and it just has these natural ability to decrease your appetite. So a lot of times we'll tell people, you know, mid-morning or mid-afternoon where you kind of feel like you're bottoming out a little bit, if you just have an apple, all of a sudden that just kind of coats your stomach and makes you not hungry anymore, and you're able to get to that next meal, which is supper time. And of course, it's also good because you're eating an apple.
Right.
So there's nothing bad about doing something like that. It's a twofer, as we call it. You know, you're suppressing your appetite and you're adding a good nutrient, such as an apple, that's just filled with wonderful nutrients for people.
On my way in, I was listening to radio. They're talking about the problem of global warming. And one of the solutions was to cut out meat. People, instead of eating meat, eat chicken because of the global warming effect of the cows and et cetera. And would you have a comment on that?
Well, I discourage eating meat quite a bit. I really don't like to see people eating red meat as much as they're eating it. I mean, they're eating it on a daily basis, a lot of them. And so for me, I think if that were the case, if that's what they're really trying to do to encourage chicken eating instead of red meat eating, then it's only good for that person who is now eating it, especially with cholesterol issues and heart issues. So to me, I would be for something like that.
Certainly the chicken is a step down from the global effects of a beef product, a cow or something like that. And even a step down from that would be even fish, and a step down from that would be a plant. So if you're worried about the footprint that you're making on the earth and you want to be in sync with creation, then decrease your red meats, like Donna said.
Yeah. The other thing, too, I wanted to say, too, about people who, are addicted to food and like to feel full, that belly needs to feel full. And that's where we really do encourage people to be eating vegetables. And, of course, this time of year, going to your local farm markets or your farms. So you're encouraging actually eating local produce. And we all know that the local produce has more nutrients in it than something we would get from California. So we kind of encourage people to eat the seasonal foods of the time. And summertime is the best time to be eating a lot of greens that have a lot of water content, too. And, you can fill your stomach with a lot of things. You can fill it with cheese, which is very small and heavy and not good for you, or you can fill it with big leafy greens that fill up your belly a little bit more quicker, and you can get through more and eat less calories. So it's a great time to be eating local.
So, well, when you say to people, they have to have a hamburger, I knew a priest who used to have 2 hamburgers every day. I hope not on Friday, but every day it was a ritual with him. He always had to have meat. But how do you change that attitude from meat and to chicken or to fish or to vegetables? How do you change that attitude? How do you get that attitude changed?
I think we like to take people down the road and have them look at their future and say to them, because we know that red meat is not good for you. It will cause heart disease. But I think if the person is now looking down the road to his future and what quality of life he wants to have down the road, we've found that we've had much success with people thinking about their grandkids. Do you want to be here for your grandkids? Do you want to be able to take them to the park? Do you want to be able to walk and be, in the community? Because we see more and more people as they're getting older. They're, headed into surgery for, knee surgery, for hip surgery. And a lot of this is due to immobility, and the immobility a lot of times is due to overweight or the types of foods that they're eating just in general.
Well, I think also they could start eating, instead of starting their meal with the hamburger, they could start their meal with the vegetables. And I don't mean the French fry. I mean maybe a salad before, so they can fill themselves up with a salad and cut back a little bit, little by little, and see how much room they actually have for that hamburger after they've already filled up with some fruits and vegetables and some greens.
There'd be Italians fighting against you because the Italians always eat the salad at the end. But it's a good point. We only have 2 minutes left to the show. One more question about the drugs. I was saying Mass in prison recently. I asked how many of them know somebody that overdosed and died. Everybody put up their hands. In another prison, I asked them, how many of you started with marijuana and graduated? To 18 out of 19. What's your quick observation about the drug of marijuana?
Well, I think it should still stay prescription. I don't think it should be, if it has to be anything, it's addictive. You have to be under somebody's watch and care. I think if it's a prescription, that's good, because a little bit leads to a lot, and we know that that's the way the opioid crisis started. A little bit led to a lot, and now we're in a problem situation. And the same thing can happen with marijuana if we don't keep restrictions nipped in the bud at the very beginning, which we are right now.
No, good. I'm running out of time. Thank you so much for the conversation. And I make sure you do your homework with that telephone call and that tea. In the meantime,
Thank you, Father. God bless you.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we got to wrap up. It's been a very interesting story, talking talk about vocations, talking about holy rosaries, talking about billboards, talking about the drug problem, talking about the eating problem. So each one of those problems really are they're human problems. And behind those human problems is a God problem. I think the closer we get to God, the easier we are to handle all the other problems that we mentioned. But I think I'll knock off the meat. In fact, I had 2 pieces of meat, and I had meat at lunchtime. So I think I'll knock it off for a good long time. So that's my lesson for me. I don't know what lesson you got today, whether it was the lesson about vocations, a lesson about the rosary, the lesson about the billboards, praying with the billboards, the lesson about eating habits, the lesson about the drug habits. But the one I'd be most cautious about is the one about marijuana. I was over at the hospital this week for 4 days. I'll just tell you one story. I've got so many. Okay, we're out of time. Take care, and God bless you.